I really have a passion for the cattle industry. I've grown up around cattle, and I can remember seeing my first cow with my great-grandfather taking me out and looking at an old horned Hereford cow at about 3 years old. I've got 2 twin daughters, and they love being out here and enjoying the livestock. Definitely my children, because they can identify a cow at probably 200 yards without an ear tag. Dustin Heeter, and we're at Heritage Hill Farms in Saltsberg, Pennsylvania. We're a forage-based operation. We don't do any crop farming. There's a lot of grass that isn't utilized in this area and across the state to probably the extent that it would be in other parts of the country. When I was looking at opportunities to utilize the grass without a large amount of investment that offered some return, the stocker cattle seemed like a natural fit. Stocker operation allows me some flexibility as far as utilizing that grass without a long-term commitment. We run about 40 to 50 brood cows. We market some yearling bulls every year. We market a few replacement heifers. We've got basically 2 different locations that we run cattle at, and each of those locations is divided up in a rotational grazing program. The one operation where the stockers are at has 13 paddocks in it that we rotate those cattle through. There's a first cutting of hay made on it, and then the cattle are rotated through it the balance of the year. And then each of those paddocks feed into a laneway that goes back to a central water system on both sides of the road. There's paddocks on both locations, and they feed back to one central watering location on both sides. We get a tremendous spring flush of grass. The challenge is that questionable time frame when there's green out there and it's starting to grow, and you kind of need to start to graze it a little bit earlier than might be ideal, because if you wait until ideal situations, you'll never get through all of your paddocks and maintain the productivity across the board. And that's one of the reasons why I make hay on part of my grazing ground, is because you never have the number to utilize all that spring flush of grass. So you make one cutting of hay on part of that ground, and that brings that grass back into a productive forage standpoint to utilize with the livestock later on. Flexibility is something that you've got to have for a grazing operation. Intensive or rotational grazing, I guess, is what I see as the best use. The productivity of this ground has probably tripled in the time frame that I've put it into a rotational grazing program, just by allowing the forages to mature and have time to build up root reserves and move forward from there. There's a tremendous amount of resources out there through NRCS or Cooperative Extension or other agencies with specialists that can help you come in and lay out a system that works for you. I guess the first thing in my mind is to set a goal as what you want to accomplish, and decide what you want, the livestock that you want to raise, look at the level of time you want to invest in it, and the money that you want to invest into fencing and watering systems. There's not a textbook way of laying a grid on top of a piece of ground and coming up with a design. It really involves looking at the terrain, looking at the challenges, you know, whether you're moving cattle uphill or downhill or in and out of trees, that sort of thing. Really look at what makes sense to each individual spot, and there's a wealth of expertise out there to help a person move forward with a plan. Being good stewards of the land is important across the board. Good conservation practices really go hand in hand with a grazing operation. Good strong grass stands are excellent at protecting ground from runoff and utilizing the nutrients that we put back on it. Forage stands really fit well in a conservation program. I think one of the real benefits that we often overlook in either an intensive or a rotational grazing program is the contact that you have with the livestock. When you're out there moving those cattle every couple of days, there's a calming effect to them. They get used to you handling them, and that's really beneficial throughout the whole season, whether it be those stocker calves or whether it be a set of cows. The time that you're out there with them really benefits you. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you today.